Coming off that new trade pact with China, or I guess you could call it an agreement, it's not a full formal agreement. The Prime Minister announced that roughly 50,000 electric vehicles will be coming to Canada from China. And that announcement ruffled feathers both inside and outside the auto industry. Ontario Premier Doug Ford calling for an all-out boycott of Chinese EVs. Let's get more from Sam Fiorani, Vice President at AutoForecast Solutions. Sam, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Great to be here.
I guess we should, people know this, but we should start off by just reminding people these 40,000 or 49,000 Chinese EVs would only be about 3% of our auto market.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a breaking into the market for the Chinese brands. It's not going to be a substantial number of vehicles, but it will give them a foot in the door.
There's a lot of talk. Even the Ontario Premier said they're not going to invest here. And do you think they will? Will they spend significant dollars on assembly or supply chains here in Canada?
The Chinese want to be in this market. They need to get in here to expand their footprint worldwide. And so getting anything into the Canadian market will help that. Once they get in and once they get the brands established, they're going to need to build locally in order to expand that beyond the current 49,000 and eventual 70,000 units that are allowed.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think? Is this... Excuse me, I know this was part of a peace deal over Canadian agricultural products, but even ignoring that, if possible, is this a smart move by the federal government to give the Chinese a toehold here?
In order to build the infrastructure for manufacturing in Canada, mm-hmm. This helps. This brings in new players. The Canadian automotive market has been limited to the Detroit 3, Honda, and Toyota. And there wasn't a lot of new investment in the area, but the trade deals with the United States haven't helped. So finding some alternative sourcing, which would be a Chinese manufacturer, helps bring that along and generate it into the future. We can see new plants coming up in the next 5 to 10 years potentially, and potentially filling some of the existing plants with Chinese vehicles as well.
Of course, the auto industry in North America says, well, they're heavily subsidized, but you often hear that in trade disputes. Oh, the other side is subsidized. And of course, our own auto industry is not, or the North American industry isn't so reluctant to gobble up subsidies themselves. In a way, I think this is a good move in the sense that our auto manufacturers have not produced the kind of electric vehicles that have been big sellers. Maybe we should give the Chinese a chance.
We need entry-level vehicles, and entry-level electric vehicles help a lot in the transition to electric vehicles. Electric vehicles will be the future. They're not going to be the future in the next 5 years, probably not 10 years, more likely in the 2040s. In order to keep the auto industry moving forward and growing, you're going to need to switch to electric vehicles eventually. Having the Chinese break into this market, bring in entry-level models, appeal to people who were not able to afford the vehicles that were on the market previously. This will expand the market and eventually grow it to a point where the electric vehicles are a substantial part of the Canadian market.
The Chevrolet is bringing back the Bolt, apparently, for 2027, and it's priced at about $40,000 before freight and pre-delivery. I love the way they put on these charges. I'm not sure how long they actually plan to go on selling it, but it looks like the big US companies can produce a reasonably priced small electric car.
Models like the Bolt were designed to get the incentives that the federal government in the US had previously, and the governments in Canada as well. Mm-hmm. They were designed to have that $7,000 padding.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, in the U.S., it went away. So now this vehicle has to stand on its own, and that's why GM has decided it's going to be a limited production vehicle. We're going to see that vehicle going away in the next 2 years.
Yes. From what I've seen, the production will actually last for only 18 months. It sounds, why are they doing that? Why would they launch a car for such a small, short period?
It was intended to be built longer.
Mm-hmm.
It was intended to be built alongside the U.S. $7,500 incentive. With that gone, now GM has to carry that $7,500 that would have been padded into the price before. Selling it at $30,000 is going to lose money for General Motors. And so they promised to build it. They have the tooling set up. It's going to go away in 18 months.
You're right. 40,000 was the price I heard for Canada. Before these myriad charges that they put on, it's always impressive. You gave us a kind of a long-term outlook. You said electric cars are ultimately the future, but it could take a decade or more before they become a huge part of the market. Why is that? Because they're just better in some ways, lower maintenance, for example?
They're easier to put together eventually once they've designed vehicles around electrification. We're going to see them being easier to build, easier to update. We know they're emissions free. There are a lot of reasons why these are better vehicles. We've seen the performance of them. They're quicker. They're more enjoyable to drive. Mm-hmm. They make less noise. They have all kinds of benefits that gas vehicles do not have. It's just going to take a long time because roughly 80% of the market can't be convinced that they can drive an EV every day. And so making those people understand that an EV works into their lifestyle will take a long time.
It's interesting you mentioned the quiet, getting the noise down for one thing, although that's become a sound of the 21st century, hasn't it? The odd kind of high-pitched hum from the electric cars. Thanks very much, Sam, for giving us the time.
Great to be here.
Sam Fiorani is VP at AutoForecast Solutions.